So this is Bree. We are actually going to be adding in some hand-tied rooted extensions. We're doing a single row. I'm going to show you how we can add length, and then we're going to blend in her natural hair to the added length because we're putting 22-inch extensions in. So let's get started. If you actually look at Bree's hair in the back area, we cut it in kind of a V. And she likes it that way, so we want to keep that. So one of the things we can do to preserve that is by creating a section that's higher up that dips down, so that way the extensions will actually emphasize that V as well. So we want to create almost like a little bit of a teardrop in a way, where it's a higher point at the top, lower point at the bottom. So I'm going to spray a little bit of texture spray up through that root area and down through that part line, and then I'll go back over the top of that with my fine tooth comb and push all those hairs in the right direction that they should go in. All right, now I'm going to use my little Velcros. I like to grab the hairs and push it upward when I'm using these. Before I put the beads in, I'm actually going to take the width of the hair, and I'm going to kind of use this to measure the points of the head where I want that to fall. Typically, a general rule of thumb is I want to make sure that it is 2 finger widths behind the hairline. I'm going to place the clip on the outside of where one side of the weft would begin, and I'll do the exact same thing on the other side of the head. See how right here I have that clip on the very end, so this is where that piece ends, and this is what I was talking about earlier. I just want to make sure that I've got like 2 finger widths, in which I have a little bit more than 2 finger widths in front of that hairline, so that way when she pulls it back, she's not going to expose that. I'm going to start out the first bead a little bit more square to anchor that in. So this is going to go down, drop down. I'm creating a little square, and then I'm going to take my threaded bead, pull it through the loop, and then I'm going to push that bead into the hair. And then I'm going to clamp this in. Before I clamp it in, what I like to do is make sure that there's no other flyaway hairs around it. And you can actually start grabbing the ends of the hair around the bead before you move it up. When you pop the bead up through here, you want to make sure that when you clamp onto it, that you're rotating the bead down. So I'm going to clamp up, rotate down, and secure it. So now it's flatter to the head rather than sticking straight out. The first one going away from the face, and the same thing on the other side, I'll angle it slightly away from the face. The other ones, you can have it actually be more horizontal. Now I'm ready to move on to a rectangle shape. So I'm going to go a little bit wider, and I'm going to go not quite as deep into that sectioning. The reason why you want to go in with a wider section is because there's more space that you can actually bring your sewing around the bead. And I'll show you that in just a little bit, but when you're sewing around the bead, you don't want the sewing to go under the bead. Otherwise, it makes it for a major headache when you go to bring the hair back up again. It's a lot easier to tighten when you don't have string going underneath your bead. So again, you want to push up, anchor down, rotate, and secure. And to make this move a little bit faster, you'll notice that I'm taking the tail comb and I'm just actually pushing it right into the bun on top of her head. So just go and hold it there. I'm gonna hold on to my pliers in one hand and I just palm it. Bring your bead in. And my little trick too is, like, when I am done with this, I actually take my pinky and I hold it onto my pinky. So when you get used to doing things like that, it eliminates your time with having to like set things down, because it can be really easy to fumble around with your different tools that you have to use. So I just find that easier to cut down on my timing when I'm doing an installation. Installation from beginning to end to do this type of hidden gem method, it does take a little over an hour when you're experienced, but you want to give yourself about an hour and a half per row when you first start doing this, until you get everything down. And again, if you develop these good habits in the beginning when you first start doing it, then it becomes a lot easier and you can become faster at doing it. And speed is not necessarily about like how fast you're going on the head. It's more of just about being efficient with your timing and minimizing the amount of things that you're setting down and picking back up again.
All right, now that I thoroughly talked your ear off, I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up and show you just how easy it is to repeat this process over and over again. I'm continuing on with my rectangle sectioning all the way around the head. One note I will say is that I make sure that my body is squared off to my section. It makes it a lot harder to make sure that your bead is evenly distributed through the middle of that section if you're off to the side. And then when I round that corner, I go in with a square once again.
All right, we are ready for our next step. So what I did is I lifted up the beads and I'm dropping this Genius weft. It's a half weft. So you can see I'm just centering this, because this is the thickest part of the hair. So it's gonna look a lot more natural if I let it live in the thickest section, doubling up that space, and it also helps to support the length. And I'm gonna clip those sections in temporarily. One on each side, one on the center. And then I'm actually going to bring the entire hand ties over the top of it. So I've got my 3 together and they're gonna go right over the top. And that looks pretty good to me, but again, I'll check one more time before I start sewing it in. Now the thread that I'm taking, I like to take 2 arm spans. I'm gonna be using the thread with rooted, and we're using our curved needle that comes in your kit. And I'm gonna start that initial sewing right now. What I did is I double knotted my thread first, and I wanna start my first, we're gonna call it incision, like I'm doing surgery here. And I'm gonna be starting on the outside of the second bead first. So we're gonna go in. You always wanna be pointing your needle down so that it's gonna go down, and you can use your finger under the hair if you'd like to feel the bead, but you can kind of see where it collects on the side here. So I'm gonna start on the outside of the second bead, push it all the way through, and you wanna pass it through the open side of your thread. So don't double it up yet. Go all the way through first. You always want your string to go straight up in the air. And then I'm gonna do a double pass through. So I'm actually gonna pass it through the same way. Go through again. And now it's going through the double. See, it's not going through singles. And I'm gonna pass that through, and then I'm gonna do a double knot. So hold on to the loop, go through a secondary time, pull everything straight up, and we're gonna give it a little tug, and now that locks it in place.
We're gonna speed this up so I can show you just how I finish off that left corner pocket stitch. I'm gonna slide the actual needle underneath the bead and pull the string all the way through. This is going to help secure that corner down all the way. And now I'm gonna start heading to the right-hand side. I'm slowing this down in real time so you can see just how careful I am with guiding that string through with my fingers. It's important when you're doing this process because it's really easy for hair to get caught in that string as you're pulling it through. And also when the string is longer, it's really easy for that to knot up as well. So if you use your fingers to guide that through as you're doing it, it makes it for a much cleaner, easier process, also taking you less time. The other thing I want to add is I'm doing a single and a double alternating. When I'm pulling the string through single, it's just creating one slip knot. When I'm doing a double, it's locking that knot into place. I like to do that on each side of the corners, so that way I just have a double reinforcement, knowing that I have 3 stacked hand ties on top and then 1 Genius underneath. A Genius weft, the difference is that you can cut a Genius weft so that you can customize it. Remember, I was telling you that I was customizing that Genius weft underneath because I wanted to put it in the most dense area possible, which is the underneath of the hair. I also do the hand ties on top because hand ties have a lower profile, so they fit more snugly to the top of the head. Because I wanted to add extra length to Bree's hair, I wanted to position this up a little bit higher. As her hair grows, I can actually adjust where this piece is sitting, but for now, I'm gonna stick higher up, and I'm gonna speed this process up so that you can see as I finish this, I'm going to round this corner and do the exact same thing as I did before, slipping that needle right underneath the bead, pulling it all the way through. And to finish this up, I'm going to take the string and wind it around the needle 3 times, pull it all the way up and really take my time and then secure that knot one last time before I cut the string off.
As you can see, it is beautifully blended in. Bree's hair looks amazing. Let's go ahead and look at the back here so that you can kind of see that hidden gem method. So I'm gonna lift everything up from the underneath. And as you can see, when I pull this up through here, you can see that that weft underneath is sewn directly in, and you can't see any of those beads. So this is the difference between that traditional and the hidden gem, where you don't see any of these beads at all. It is a beautiful blend. Like, it emphasizes her blonde, it adds some extra length, it definitely adds more volume. It kind of emphasizes the dimension too, so that when her natural tone gets a little bit warmer, she can have this other tone between to make it a little bit cooler.
Just show you. Come on, come here, come a little closer. Don't be afraid, no, I don't wanna hurt you. Little more, come near, let me just show you. Don't know, can't talk, let me just show you. Don't be obsessive, it could be intensive, it could be explosive, it could be offensive. Don't be defensive, don't be aggressive, it will be a waste, cause we could be expensive.